the threat of nuclear war comes from the conflict, in my opinion, comes from the conflict in Iran, from the war in Ukraine and comes from Russia. Because you have an actual superpower president who has threatened the use of nuclear weapons. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, so it's not a nuclear threat.
You speak a different nuclear language than I do. Russia is launching intercontinental ballistic missiles that can't be intercepted. It's got the Oreshnik. What the hell is it going to be afraid of a warhead on the tip of an airplane? It's not. That's a tactical nuke. That's a battlefield nuke.
But what is your point?
My point is that the deployment of a nuclear weapon is nuclear war. The deployment of a nuclear weapon.
Wait.
If you're talking about mutually assured destruction.
Are you talking about the use of a nuclear weapon, or are you talking about putting a warhead on an aircraft?
No, that's been technology for a long time.
Right. So
using it in the battlefield.
But it's not being used in the battlefield. I agree with you 1,000%.
You don't think it's being? You think it is being used in the battlefield?
No, I'm saying it's being deployed. Is that getting us closer to nuclear war? Yes.
Yes, but it's not because of Iran.
It has nothing to do with Iran. And what are you talking about being deployed? Because you're talking about France maneuvering where its weaponry is.
That's the definition of a deployment.
That is, well, then we're talking about it. I'm talking about nuclear use. I mean, the United States deploys its nuclear forces all the time by President Trump saying, I'm moving our submarines, which is just talk because they're moving anyways. It's the same as it's threatening when Putin says, I'm moving at my nuclear, or when he tests, Norway by popping up right outside of their shores. Those are maneuvers that are very dangerous. I absolutely agree.
Annie, but in this particular case, has even from a Russian perspective, has this war in Iran increased the probability that a Putin would use a nuclear weapon?
In my opinion, absolutely not. No. In my opinion, no. In my opinion, what it does to Putin is it makes him say, wow, this president is unpredictable. And to an authoritarian person like Putin, that's a match for him, not someone for him to walk on. And I think that I'm not saying that's a great way for world diplomacy whatsoever. It's not diplomacy. It's just, it's just strong-arming one another. But we are not. I do not feel at all that this situation makes us closer to a nuclear threat whatsoever.
I agree. I think it's a combination of Ukraine and China's military exercises and action in the South China Sea, and the whole sort of what we're not seeing. There's this argument that China's watching what's going on with the U.S. and Iran. Here we are depleting our interceptors, our munitions. China's meanwhile stockpiling, its resources. And does this put us at a disadvantage if and when the day comes where China decides to take proactive, aggressive action vis-a-vis Tehran? That's something to think about. And I think then I'm worried about the risk of nuclear war in that instance. I don't think Iran by itself in a vacuum is moving the needle on that sort of nuclear risk meter.
To your point, what this is a boon for is the defense contractor world, is the military-industrial complex. Because, for example, part of why Iran is so weak is because they've used up so many ballistic missiles in their conflict with Israel.
I read today the interceptor to missile ratio, something like 25 to 1, that the interceptors needed to catch these ballistic missiles that Kuwait, the UAE, Israel is using. They're like upwards of 10, 15 times more expensive.
Yes.
And these drones are relatively cheaply made, these Shahed drones that they're using. So, there is that aspect of it too, that Iran can just fire like a madman all these sort of expendable munitions, and meanwhile we're spending 3, 4, 5, 10 times as much to intercept them.
Yes, although you do see in any kind of conflict like this, you always see new weapons on the battle, and that's what happened now. And America actually has been copying the Shahed drones, these cheap, we call them the Lucas, these cheap systems that can just go in and cause havoc without precision, and we deployed them. So I think this was a long time.
Sorry to interrupt you, Stephen.
No worries.